All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to get into something pretty wild, the occult anatomy of the Indian state. We're going to look at it not as some kind of political machine, but as a living, breathing, cosmic body, an idea with roots that stretch back for thousands of years.
So think about it for a second. When you think of a state, what comes to mind? Is it a machine? A collection of departments and laws? Or could it be something more, something alive? Well, ancient Indian political thought has this fascinating answer, envisioning the state as a really complex organism, complete with a head, limbs, and even its own metaphysical nervous system.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about the sovereign's cosmic role. Then, we're going to dissect the state's body, piece by piece. After that, we'll see how this body interacts with its neighbors. We'll take a peek at it through some outside perspectives, and finally, we'll bring these ancient ideas right into our modern world.
All right, so let's start at the very top. We're going to meet the head of this organism. And believe me, this isn't just a king or a president. This is the Cakravartin, the universal wheel-turning ruler, a concept that completely flips the script on what it means to be a sovereign.
Yeah, the Cakravartin, their power isn't just about having the biggest army or the most territory. No, it's way deeper than that. It's about aligning the entire kingdom with the cosmic order, with Dharma. Think of them almost like a Buddha, but for the secular world. Their rule isn't really a conquest, it's more like a cosmic correction, a way of setting the world right.
And check this out. The ruler's power isn't just some abstract idea. It's literally embodied in these 7 metaphysical jewels, the Saptaratna. And each one perfectly blends the spiritual meaning with a really practical function. So the chakra, or wheel, isn't just a symbol. It's seen as a miraculous diamond disc that represents an unstoppable will. Or the empress, she isn't just a person. She represents the feminine energy, the Shakti, that guarantees the state's very continuity and welfare. It's just a completely holistic way of looking at power.
So, if the ruler is the head, what about the rest of the body? Well, for that, we turn to an absolute master of strategy, Kautilya. In his masterpiece, the Arthashastra, he gives us a detailed blueprint that lets us dissect this entire organism.
And here's the key thing to grasp, and it's a big one. Kautilya wasn't just using flowery language or a cool metaphor. He genuinely saw the state as a biological system. Every part is connected, and just like in our own bodies, if one organ starts to fail, the whole organism is in danger.
And boom, here it is, the whole anatomy laid out for us. You've got the sovereign as the head, the bureaucracy as the eyes, the forts as the protective arms, the treasury as the mouth, taking in nourishment and providing vital energy. But what's really wild to me is this last one, the allies, or mitra. They aren't just external partners you call up for help. They are a literal, inseparable organ of the state, its ears.
All right, so we've mapped out the internal anatomy. We know how the body works on the inside. But how does it interact with other bodies out there on the world stage? This is where we get into a totally unique and, honestly, super logical model of foreign policy. It's called the mandala theory. And think of it less like modern diplomacy and more like sacred geometry, or maybe a planetary system. It's not about who you like or what your ideology is. It's all about where you are in relation to everyone else. It's pure geography.
And all boils down to this one incredibly powerful core principle. Your neighbor is your natural enemy, and your neighbor's neighbor is your natural ally. It's so simple, right? But think about it. Proximity breeds competition, and that one single idea spins out this whole predictable web of strategic relationships, turning the entire region into a geometric puzzle of friends and foes.
So in this system, you have 2 main players you're always watching. There's the Ari, that's your enemy, the state that's right there on your border, and then you have the Mitra, your ally, who's on the other side of your enemy. This creates this constant natural push and pull, this incredible geopolitical dance where everyone is kind of locked into their roles by the map itself.
Now, as you can imagine, a way of seeing the world that's this different has totally fascinated outsiders for centuries. So let's do a quick flyby and see how a few others, specifically the French, the Chinese, and the Russians, tried to wrap their heads around it.
So the French structuralists, guys like Georges Dumézil, they looked at all this and saw that the Indian sovereign wasn't just one thing. Nope, they embodied this powerful duality. On the one hand, you have Mithra, the lawful, rational, priest-like side of things, and on the other, you have Varuna, the magical, violent, almost terrifying dark side of power, the one who wields chaos like a weapon.
Then you've got the Chinese perspective. from a 7th century pilgrim named Xuanzang. And what he saw just blew his mind. He didn't see a king hoarding gold. He saw this incredible ritual where Emperor Harsha would spend 5 years gathering up all the state's wealth, and then he'd call a huge assembly and give it all away. I mean everything, down to the clothes on his back. Then he'd start over, poor. It was a state built on giving, not taking.
And then, things get really mystical with the Russian view. You have thinkers like Nicholas Roerich, who were searching for the mythical kingdom of Shambhala. For him, this whole occult anatomy wasn't just ancient history. No way. It was a living blueprint for a real-world utopia. He actually imagined this Budo-communist superstate, linking the Bolshevik Revolution with the spiritual masters of the Himalayas.
Okay, so let's pull all of this into the here and now. Because I want to be really clear, these ideas of a living state, a sacred body, they aren't just dusty old concepts in a book. They are alive and kicking, and they are profoundly shaping Indian politics as we speak.
And this is maybe the most powerful modern expression of it, Bharat Mata, or Mother India. This idea literally transforms the map of the country into the physical sacred body of a goddess. All of a sudden, patriotism isn't just a civic duty, it becomes a form of religious devotion. Borders are no longer just lines, they're the skin of a deity.
And when you see the world that way, well, it changes everything. It means a historical event like the 1947 partition isn't viewed as just a political tragedy. In this worldview, it's felt as a physical violation, a violent dismemberment of the mother's sacred body. And that's a wound that, as you can imagine, runs incredibly deep even today.
We can even see the echoes of these ancient anatomical parts at work right now. The modern army, the danda, or striking power, and economic policy, the artha, they are often defended and explained using the timeless geopolitical logic of the mandala, identifying those natural enemies and natural allies in a world of circles.
So, all this leaves us with a final, big question to chew on. If a nation truly sees itself not as a machine, but as a living, sacred cosmic being, what does that mean for its politics today? What happens when this ancient anatomy meets modern geopolitics? Well, the answer to that is still unfolding right before our very eyes.